An Indian court has sentenced 38 people to death and 11 others to life in prison over a series of bomb blasts in 2008 in Ahmedabad. The coordinated attacks in the city in western Gujarat state killed more than 50 people and injured hundreds more. A group called the Indian Mujahideen claimed responsibility for the blasts. Well, for more, we welcome to the program Subir Sinha, an India expert from SOAS University of London. Thanks for joining us tonight. Now, these sentences were handed down almost 14 years after the attack. Tell us more about the long investigation that led to these convictions.
Well, yes. I mean, this case finally has come to a close. They were found guilty in December, and the sentencing has happened today. This has been a pattern for, I think, quite a while now. That the cases, some of them even going further back to 2002 or even in the previous century, are basically being decided now. And I think that is a comment on the difficulty in producing witnesses, in producing evidence that is incontrovertible, and the fact that in many of these cases, the investigation itself has been called under question, and in some cases, you've had people released after about 20 odd years. Having said that, I don't want to minimize the incidents of 2008. The attacks had taken place at a very crowded bus stop, and then within an hour in the hospitals where the victims were being taken. This was the sort of a high point of major conflict between Hindu radicals and Muslim fundamentalist organizations such as the Indian Mujahideen that you mentioned, with some degree of coordination, it is reported, from across the border in Pakistan. So this was a kind of the years of terror, if you want to call it that. And in any such period, in any country, the events are very murky. There is no clarity as to what has gone on. And political parties will come at these incidents from various points of view, from various directions, to try to make political capital out of that. So at the end of all of this, of course, one feels sorry for the victims. One feels not vindication, but at least some semblance for the families of the victims that perhaps they've received justice. But one also worries whether, given the timing of these verdicts and the punishment, whether there is a political dimension that has little to do with the events of those days and perhaps much more to do with the events of the coming week.
Yes, and as you mentioned, perhaps a political angle to this here. This sentencing comes as religious tensions have been flaring again in India.
Yes, well, I mean, these are not really, I wouldn't really call them religious tensions. I would basically call them the exploitation of religious difference for political reasons. So to that extent, one could think in terms of the manufactured controversy of schoolgirls wearing hijab in Karnataka state as very much a part of this particular moment. And what I meant by the kind of political misuse or exploitation of these, religious differences, and to kind of use a current word, to weaponize them, is basically that it gives a narrative to the ruling party, which is going into 5 state elections, most crucially the elections in the state of Uttar Pradesh, which are already ongoing. And it gives them a narrative along the line that they are the ones who are for Hindu security and safety, that they are the ones who have taken a strong stand against terrorism, and of course, by association, they make the word terrorism associated with India's Muslim population, and by extension, they tar all other opposition parties as being soft on terrorism. We see already that this has been picked up in the campaign, and we see on mainstream Indian television news stories about the death threats that Mr. Modi is supposed to have received as Chief Minister of the state of Gujarat. And we see similar kinds of charges being leveled against the Congress party or the Samajwadi party, which the BJP has been trying to portray as being soft on terrorism and as parties that are primarily those which are, quote unquote, appeasing Muslims.
All right, thank you so much for joining us here on the program tonight with that analysis.
Thanks very much.